Hey everybody!
Hello!
We're back home from our epic journey for the month, and as per request from quite a few people, we've decided to put together a recap. We'll give you our basic itinerary of amount of days we spent in certain places, where we went. We'll chuck it on a map for you to see. We'll give you a couple of tips, our top places that we went and places we might not probably hit up again if we had our ways. And our top 10 tips and tricks for our journey. Cool. So, do you want to start with the recap of where we went and how long we stayed in places?
Sure. So we started off by flying into LA, where we got an Airbnb and we stayed in West Hollywood for 5 nights. After that we moved on to Anaheim, where we stayed for 2 nights, which just consists of literally of Disneyland. We drove about 8 hours up to Santa Cruz, where we stayed for 1 night, before moving on to San Francisco, where we had 2 nights, which in hindsight I wish we had more nights there personally.
Yep.
Then we had 2 nights in Yosemite, 1 night in Death Valley, 1 night in Vegas, which was meant to be 2, but everyone knows how we felt about that. The second night that we were meant to be in Vegas, we ended up spending in Zion, so 1 night in Zion, 1 night in Bryce Canyon, which is just neighbouring Zion, 1 night back in Vegas before we had to catch our flight out the next day, then 2 nights in Oregon City, which is a suburb of Portland, and followed by 1 night in Forks, aka Twilight Town, followed by 2 nights in Seattle before flying from Seattle to Orlando, where we spent 4 nights, and flew back across to LA, where we stayed 1 night close by to the airport before flying home the next day. So that's a quick recap of our itinerary.
Yep. There was certainly a few places that we wish that we spent longer, but this was a bit of a taste tester, I guess, of the country. Not even, about a 10th of the country. And I'm sure we'll go back another time and spend more time so we can really get stuck into some of the areas that we really liked.
You holding your little foot?
I always hold my foot.
She's holding her little foot.
So we were sitting here talking about our favourite places that we were, and I was like, let's pick our top place to say. So we started with mine, which was, I picked my top location in the whole place as being the Hall of Mosses, which was in Olympic National Park in Washington State. So that was right near where we stayed for Forks. So even though the Forks thing was a little bit like underwhelming in itself.
It was not underwhelming, it was cool.
In terms of seeing Twilight things, it was rather underwhelming.
I liked it.
Having said that, Forks was a super awesome location for really getting out and seeing the national park there, and as we said in our video of then, we could have spent days. That was, like we said, it's the huge portion of the land over there, and we only saw one teeny little speck of it, so I would go back and I would stay in Forks again.
Oh, absolutely.
As a base to investigate that, so highly recommend. Megan couldn't pick a top place.
It was really hard. Mine are a little bit more like vague and general. My favourite places were definitely pretty much the whole of Oregon and Washington, like the whole state that we saw, which we traversed quite a bit of, particularly Washington, so just the scenery was amazing. And then it was a really, really close tie for Best National Park Award. So it was a tie between Zion and Yosemite. They both were just super epic. The trees and scenery were amazing, and we did some really cool hikes, which were awesome. And I feel like I just have to give honorable mention to Disneyland in there, because, you know, it'd be rude not to, really. So yeah, mine's very vague.
I feel like taking Disneyland out of the equation, which I know is a ridiculous thing to do, but let's just assume that's top anyways. I think we really felt that the national parks were by far our favourite thing. Like, the cities were nice. We particularly like San Francisco, but having said that, we would a million times spend the time that we had in places like Yosemite and the national park. Like all of the national parks, they were so different to each other, really different to each other, which was really cool. But I would choose spending more time there than back in LA any day of the week.
You could spend weeks just in the national parks that we went to, so that's what we'll be doing next time, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
We did a few little, like we did our favourite things, our few things that we were sort of a bit like, probably didn't need to go to those in hindsight, or we'd say if you're tossing up about it, maybe from our opinion, don't worry about it, or don't spend as much time there. We definitely felt like we probably didn't need 5 nights in LA in addition to Anaheim. We probably could have knocked over the highlights that we really enjoyed in LA in probably about 3 nights probably. So I think we could have definitely shortened that time.
It was kind of nice. The good thing about it was that we had a little bit more downtime compared to the rest of our trip. But yeah, like you said, we could have condensed that down a little bit more and spent more time in other places that we enjoyed much more. But I mean,
Yes.
I think coming in with what LA was going to be.
Which it was cool, but yeah, it definitely had its slight down points. It smelled like piss, real bad.
I think just the fact that it was so similar to Melbourne, that it didn't really feel like we'd travelled halfway around the world to see something new, and we're staying somewhere that was just very similar to home for the most part.
I think in terms of national parks, probably Death Valley was still awesome, but out of all of the national parks we went to, Death Valley was definitely the longest to get to and wasn't as like awe-inspiring. So if you're umming and ahhing about some of the national parks, Death Valley is probably one that, unless you've got a lot of time, probably don't need to include it in the itinerary.
We ended up staying there as a bit of a pit stop on the way to other things, and it sounded really cool. But in all reality, apart from sleeping there, we probably only spent a couple of hours looking at things there. We certainly didn't spend a great amount of time because there wasn't a great deal of things to look at. There was some cool things, but the time that you spend at those cool things probably wasn't worth the journey to get out there.
It was just really freaking hot as well, so if you're not a fan of the heat, probably give it a miss. And then I think we've covered it enough, but biggest overrated part of the holiday was definitely Vegas. I had such high hopes for it. It was just very overrated. It was gross, it was tacky, and it was just loud and stinky.
I think if you are someone who likes going to casinos, spending time gambling, then Vegas is probably for you. But being that we didn't really feel the need to, do you know what? If I had have enjoyed it a little bit more, I probably would have gone out and spent some time at like the table playing poker or something. But I really, the second we got there, I was really put off by all the smoking indoors, particularly because we really wanted to get food pretty early, and I realised that there was smoking everywhere I wanted to eat, and that really put me off the whole thing. And I think from there on, it never really clambered its way back. There was some good shopping. We spent a little bit of shopping, which we didn't talk about in the video, but other than that,
it was, you definitely wouldn't need more than 2 nights there, even if you do like gambling. 2 nights max, probably.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But yeah, we experienced it, and now we know it. Our top 10 tips are things that you might find helpful when planning your journey over to America.
Maybe things that we wish someone had told us, maybe.
Yep. So, tip number 10. Don't get swindled to buy things at Hollywood Boulevard. Just say no to random strangers that come up to you wanting your attention, because they are trying to sell you something.
You don't feel like you're getting swindled initially. They're very clever and they're very, very suave about their chatting with you, and then next minute you're handing over $20 US for a bloody reggae CD. So yeah.
Even when they say they're not trying to sell you something, they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
So
if someone approaches you, particularly in Hollywood Boulevard, just say no thanks. 100%.
Tip number 9, organising your SIM cards when you get over there. So we decided to get SIM cards locally instead of figuring out with Telstra how to put international roaming on our phones, and it was super easy. We just got off our flight, went straight to the luggage, and after we got off the luggage, we like walked about 20 meters, and there was a little stand, and it was so easy to hook ourselves up with a SIM card. We got a SIM card each. It cost $70 US, and that got us unlimited data, unlimited phone calls. I think it included phone calls back home if we wanted to use them, all that sort of jazz. And we used them consistently the entire time, and not once did we run out of data.
It was literally unlimited. And if you're wondering what provider it was that we went with, it was Ultra, which I believe are under T-Mobile. So yeah, Ultra was who we went with, and yeah, their coverage in some really remote areas, like in the national parks and yeah, really out in the middle of nowhere, was a bit sketchy. But
I think that would have been for everyone.
They gave us a map at the start that sort of like, they showed us a map that gave you an idea of where they didn't cover, so we were a bit prepared for it, which leads into your tip.
Yeah, my second part of that is if you are going to places like national parks or really remote locations, just preload your maps before you go. Easy peasy. You can save maps on Google Maps on your phone, so that way it actually uses less of your data anyway, if that matters to you. Not that it mattered to us, but more importantly, it can keep following on when you're nowhere near the mobile reception. Handy. Tip number 8. Disney World in Florida. You want to spend a day per park. Don't do what we did.
Told ya.
Don't do it. Look, if you are like us and you don't particularly ride all of the rides, because we certainly save a lot of time by not having to line up for a lot of the scary rides because we just don't enjoy them. You can probably fit 2 in a day if you really want to, but I would suggest spending a day per park. There is the 4 parks, the main parks, and then there was 2 water parks. One was down, one was in, but I would highly suggest a day per park if you can swing it. It's very much worthwhile, and then you'll relax a bit more and you won't have to walk 25,000 steps in a day.
Yeah. And yeah, you won't be a husk of a human being after day number 3 of trying to fit in 7 theme parks in 3 days.
Secondary to that, we really highly recommend staying at one of the Disney World resorts. The hotels there, there's a huge amount of options about where you can stay that are still part of the Disney umbrella. We stayed at the
Keep
Hollywood.
talking.
We stayed at the Hollywood one, which was the All-Star Movies Resort. And it was great. It was easy to check in, easy to check out. All the people there are friendly. The food is fastly available. But the best thing about it is the bus system. So not only do they easily pick you up from the airport and drop you off, it was just easy to get around the park. They had basically a whole bunch of buses set up out the front, and you could just jump on whichever one you want and it'll take you to each one of the theme parks.
Where are the bracelet car? I don't know. I just swore they were in there somewhere. I don't know where they went. Never mind. I was going to show you our little Disney hotel bracelet things that you could get that you got as a guest, and you could attach a credit card to it, and it was your way of paying for everything and your room key. So you literally didn't have to take keys or a wallet or anything like that to the theme parks or around the hotel. You just had this little bracelet thing, which was sick.
Just like a tap and go.
It was cool.
It was cool. And we can reuse them next time when we find them.
Yeah. I don't know where they went. I swear they were in that junk drawer. You know the drawer.
You know the drawer in the kitchen, the one below the utensils.
Yeah.
Cool. Tip number 7. Don't chill at the airport until you've got to your gate and figured out where that is. Yep. Each airport's super different. Security was pretty bad at all of them to get through. But we kind of expected that, but after you get through security, there is going to be a different way to get from that point to the gate that you require. And one of them, particularly Vegas, you had to catch a train after the security to your gate, and it wasn't just the gate, it was like another terminal, and it was like another kilometre of walking before you got to your gate. So
you definitely don't relax until you are right at your gate and you know that you've got plenty of time. Well, they say like minimum of half an hour before your flight's meant to depart for boarding. So definitely don't relax until you are at your gate a minimum of half an hour before it's meant to depart.
Yep.
We learned that the hard way.
We learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
Yep. Tip number 6. Our internal flights that we took within the country were with Delta. We found Delta really good, even when we did miss our flight, our own fault. They were really, really helpful at hooking us up and getting other flights to get where we needed to go. So recommend it. Thing to know in advance though is that you pay for your ticket, which includes your carry-on, but it does not include checked bags, and they charge $35 US per bag per flight that we had to check in. So just be aware of that, because you won't pay for that until you get to the airport. You might be able to pre-book it.
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just weren't sure like how much we'd have check-in wise. So
yeah, but you can do that all out of the airport.
yeah, we just ended up doing that at the little check-in kiosk every time, but I think it ended up costing us like $100 every internal flight we caught just for our check-in luggage. So that sucked, but we knew it was coming.
Yep.
So it's alright.
There's heaps of other options that you can go. We know that there's airlines that sound worse and sound better. At the end of the day, it just comes down how much you want to pay for stuff. But do recommend Delta. Just be aware of that.
Yep.
Tip number 5. When staying in Vegas, if you feel like you need a good sleep overnight because you're on the go during the day,
Or you're just really old and don't like noise.
book yourself a hotel away from the strip. Any of the hotels on the strip, they have lots of noise going on. They don't have great insulation, they don't have the double glazing. There's a lot of noise that will get into your room, so stay away from the strip. We do highly recommend the M Hotel, which is the place that we stayed at the second time we were there. No sound whatsoever, it's a bit further away, still not very far, but
Best buffet though.
best buffet in the world. I 100% best
Can't say
buffet.
enough positive things
Can't
about
say
the
enough.
buffet.
And if you like having a TV in your bathroom,
This
also
is the place for you.
Tip number 4. Portion sizes are huge.
Like, we can't exaggerate the portion size enough.
Share meals. If you like the same things, share meals. Entrees, share meals. They are huge.
Yeah.
Meals cost just as much as they do back home, so it's no cheaper. I anticipated them to be cheaper, but they're not. But the portion sizes are huge, so you can save by sharing meals if you think about it in advance. Doggy bags are okay too. They are fine with you taking stuff home if there's too much to eat.
All about the doggy bag culture over there. Perfectly fine.
Yep. Tip number 3. Take your passport with you when you plan on going to a bar. 9 times out of 10, they'll take our license. There was heaps of places we went that our driver's license from home was perfectly fine, but then there was one time that really mattered to us, that they said unfortunately they won't accept anything but our passports.
It'll be the one place that you really, really want to go that they won't accept your driver's license. So also learnt that the hard way, unfortunately. So definitely avoid crying in the street by bringing your passport when you want to go out. Yep.
Tip number 2. Hiring a car was super worthwhile. We went with Thrifty because it was a brand that we knew from home, and they were fine. They didn't have any extra costs tacked on that we weren't really aware of coming in.
Not really. They sort of like have a couple of extra sort of things that you can get, like toll tags and stuff, but we just set our phones to avoid tolls, which I don't think added any extra time.
No, not once did it make us go any further.
Yeah, except for the bloody Golden Gate Bridge. That shit has a toll on it and our phone still sent us over it. We had to pay it afterwards on the internet. So, yeah. It was a really easy process. They pick you up at the airport in the car rentals, and they drop you off there, and it was really easy. And then we could go anywhere we liked. It didn't matter how much petrol we went through, didn't matter how many kilometres we had, and we were able to drop it off at different cities as well. So, highly recommend that. Sidebar, like, point like A with that. Paying for petrol, if you try to use a card at the pump, like they all have the facilities where you can use a card at the pump. However, international cards, not so much. You have to go in and prepay for whatever fuel you want to fill up. So you can either use cash or card, but you've got to prepay it inside the service station. And you kind of just have to take a bit of a punt about how much you think you're going to want to fill up. And they'll refund you the difference if you end up not being able to fill it up as much as you thought you were going to need. So it's fine. It's just kind of an inconvenience, but it's fine.
Yep. Another point to the cars is that I would highly recommend pre-booking your cars before you get there. When we got there, we'd pre-booked ours, which was awesome. But when we did get there, even though it was not, like it was only early in the morning, they called out to everybody and said if anybody hasn't pre-booked their car already, that they were all gone for the day. So there was people in line behind us that missed out on getting cars. So pre-book your car in advance so you don't have any worries when you get there. The other part of that is you think that you might be getting a particular model of car. When you do book it, it's this car or similar. So I wanted to get the 300C. And I was a little bit disappointed that they gave me a different model.
A little bit?
I was very disappointed.
She's still disappointed, and it's like a month later.
I will tell her every time I see it on the road. But the car that they do give you is very similar to the one you booked, similar size, all that sort of jazz. So they'll give you a like-for-like model, but it might not be the exact one that you had your heart set on. Yep. Tip number 1.
Probably my most favourite tip.
Thank you to DC who gave us this tip before we went, because we found it very, very useful.
So useful.
Would you like to?
If you're driving, this is an irrelevant tip if you're not driving. If you're driving, remember the golden rule. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So when you go to turn left, you want to turn far away from, you know what I mean? Go into the lane far away. If you're turning right, you want to hug the corner. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. It is the gospel when driving over in America.
We said that to ourselves at every single intersection we came to for at least the first couple of weeks.
Yep. And so many times I nearly drove into oncoming traffic, particularly when turning left. So it is absolutely essential to remember that. Yeah.
Yep. So that's our top 10 tips. I'm sure if anybody has any questions, you can just leave a comment below and we'll get back to you. Otherwise, just hit us up in real life if you see us in real life. But we are more than happy to talk about everything that we've done. There's a lot that we didn't put in the vlogs, so feel free to hit us up with questions.
Yeah.
Cool. Until the next time.
Bye. That white knuckle grip.